Modern India emerged out of the socio-cultural phenomenon of the 19th century called the Renaissance. How much did the Christian presence influence the cultural changes going on at that time?
Cultures progress when people's capability to express themselves expands. And this is seen in the areas of scholarship, in journalism, and especially in arts. India in the 19th century entered a phase called the Renaissance that signified a change in all these areas and even more. Renaissance means a new birth, renewal of learning, new discoveries, exchanging of ideas, and dissemination of those ideas. We may have some idealistic, romantic, and even rebellious associations with Renaissance. But it was a lot of hard work. It needed commitment, dedication, and a certain doggedness. Renaissances don't happen because one odd person has painted a picture here, or published an epic poem there, or staged a groundbreaking drama. It happens because centers of learning have been constituted, institutions of advanced education have been established. Now, these are the places where manuscripts and written texts are gathered, compiled, and edited, where original sources are collected, their authenticity is established. Now, these are basically cutting-edge research centers. Now, here, ancient works are translated in modern languages, and new works are commissioned. Also are encouraged are centers of art, for example, theaters, art schools, museums, etc. So a whole new ecosystem is created for arts and culture to flourish. In the 19th century, this ecosystem emerged out of the meeting together of the East and the West. Christianity, incidentally, played an important role in this. We usually think of the work of Christian missionaries as limited to either spread of religion or in the area of education and healthcare. But their work had implication for the entire culture. For instance, Sirampur, the base of the British Baptist missionaries, became a center not only for spread of the gospel, but also for cultural renewal. Grammars and dictionaries for various Indian languages were produced here. Printing press was established, and that made it easier for ideas to be disseminated and disseminated quickly. Sirampur also provided personnel for the Fort William College. Now, Fort William College was started in Calcutta in 1800 to train the civil servants of the British East India Company. It was started by Lord Wellesley. The aim of the college was to make the future ICS officers acquainted with the languages and customs of the people of India. While appointing the teachers, they had to make one exception. They had to employ a Baptist missionary, William Carey, to teach Bengali and Sanskrit. This was unusual because the East India Company at that time did not allow missionaries to operate on their territories. But since Carey was the best scholar of Bengali and Sanskrit at that time, they had to hire him. And Carey proved to be the most popular and successful teacher in the college. With his two Indian associates, Ram Basu and Mrityunjay Vidyalankar, Carey produced many prose works to be used as textbooks. He also traveled around Bengal to find material that could be used for teaching in the classroom. He even went to Nadia, the birthplace of Vaishnava Bhakti poet Chaitanya, But he could find only about 40 manuscripts, and Carey agonized over the lack of Bengali language works. And he wanted to change all that. So, with his missionary associates Joshua Marshman and William Ward, Carey began to create typefaces, print books, and make them available at very cheap rate for students and people. In fact, William Ward invented the paper that could be locally produced for printing in Bengal. Earlier, the paper used to come from England and made the books very costly. As I said, we must remember that William Carey was not allowed to disembark in Calcutta when he first came in 1793. But now he, with his team, had become a pivot around which the Bengali Renaissance revolved. It was a massive endeavor. In fact, David Kopf, an American historian who has done extensive work on Bengal, said that this work by missionaries and by people at Fort William was the most remarkably humanistic period in the history of the modern world, next to the similar period in Renaissance Europe.
What aspect of the Christian work had the most significant influence on Indian Renaissance? Who were some of the key personalities of that era?
Robert Needham Cust was the judicial commissioner in Punjab in 1850s and 1860s. Now, he said that Bible translations are the nucleus of indigenous literature. The example of this is seen in Bengal. When the Bengali New Testament was published in 1801, it was at the Serampur Press. Now, the same press published first Bengali language newspaper and periodical called Samachar Darpan and Digdarshan, and that was in 1819. By 1823, a Christian Tracts and Book Society was formed. And this society then published the Bengali translation of John Bunyan's world-famous book, Pilgrim's Progress, in 1841. Then a major literary achievement was the publication of the first Bengali novel, Phoolmani or Karunar Vivaran, which was published in 1852. This novel was written by Catherine Hannah Mullins, a daughter of a Swiss missionary of the CMS, who himself was a very able preacher in Bengali language. Now, this novel was published 9 years before Rabindranath Tagore was born, and 12 years before Bankim Chandra Chatterjee wrote his first novel. So you see, there is a progression and how the Bible translations facilitated this Renaissance. Then there were other Indian Christian writers like Michael Madhusudan Dutt and Toru Dutt, who were trailblazers in Indian literature. Michael Madhusudan Dutt was born in 1824. He became a Christian in 1843. He penned one of the greatest Bengali poems, Meghnad Bad Kabya, the poem of killing of Meghnad in 1861. He was technically a brilliant poet. He was also writing plays for Belgachi Theatre in Calcutta. Michael Madhusudan Dutt once said to the founders of that theatre, Jyotindra Mohan Tagore, that they should use blank verse for Bengali plays. Now, blank verse is a special kind of poetic meter, a special kind of a poetic line of a certain length, which was used by Shakespeare and Milton in English. Jyotindra Mohan Tagore wasn't convinced. He thought that Bengali language was not yet mature or developed enough to handle blank verse. But within a week, Michael produced the evidence that it can be used by writing the canto of his new poem in blank verse. Toru Dutt, who was born in 1856, was another genius. She died young, but she was a very well-read poet, and she gave Indian English poetry some very exquisite poems. She also wrote in French. Her ancient ballads retold the stories from Indian epics. In those poems, she brought the East and the West together. For example, in a poem on Eklavya, she turns him into a tragic hero from a Greek drama. But why just talk of Bengal? Let's go to Tamil Nadu. Just like there was Fort William College in Calcutta, there was Fort St. George College at Madras, which was founded in 1812. and which also was a similar kind of Renaissance center. And in Madras Presidency, Christian missionary influence was seen in some of the great figures of modern Tamil literature. In fact, Danish mission had been there since 1706 when Ziegenbalg reached, and that's where Bible translations had happened much before than in other parts of India. And in time, Tanjore became a great center of learning and arts. Now, the Maratha ruler of that area, Sarfoji II, Sarfoji Bhosle, was a great patron of arts. Interestingly, Sarfoji himself had been a student of the remarkable missionary Christian Schwartz of Germany. Tanjore loved its artists. One such artist was poet Vedanayakam Pillai, also known as Vedanayakam Shastri. He was born in 1774. His Christian hymns and poems in Tamil are still very popular. Then there was another great writer by the name of Vedanayakam. His full name was Samuel Vedanayakam Pillai, and he was born in 1826. He gave the modern prose to Tamil language. He is the author of the first Tamil novel called Pratap Mudaliyar Charitra, which was published in 1879. In the field of music, a great name is Abraham Panditar, who was born in 1859. He was a genius of a researcher, multi-talented man. He also compiled a compendium of Tamil compositions in Carnatic music called Karunamritam Sagaram in 1970. That book ran into about 1400 pages. The book was printed in a press which Panditar had himself pegged. Between 1912 and 1914, Panditar also convened 6 music conferences in Tanjore. Now, such was the great contribution of Indian Christians in the Indian Renaissance.
What is the message we can give to the current generation who wish to carry on this legacy of Indian Renaissance?
To carry on the legacy, we need to first become aware of what this legacy is. Art, culture, literature has to become part of our lives. We need to develop our God-given ability to appreciate art. Now, there are many libraries attached to churches that are lying neglected. So please go and visit your churches and open the storeroom where old cupboards and junk is stored. Maybe you'll find a great work of literature, a great poem, maybe a great painting or a photograph. I think we need to do the work of restoration first. Many of the novels, biographies, autobiographies, diaries, newspapers, or the copies of those newspapers have to be rediscovered. And many of these works have to be translated into other Indian languages. Now, translations are a great way of renewal. In late 1890s, Joseph Mulliel in Kerala wanted to translate the English autobiographical novel by Krupabai Satyanathan called Saguna. Krupabai was basically a Marathi who married into a Tamil family and a wonderful writer and a social reformer. Anyway, so Joseph Mulliel wanted to translate her very famous novel. But soon he decided to write an original Malayalam novel and gave us the novel called Sukumari. Unfortunately, we do not have an English translation of that novel. At least I couldn't find it. So we should encourage the writing of novels. We should also encourage translations. And we should also promote the writing of biographies and autobiographies. Two of modern India's finest and earliest autobiographies were written in Marathi. One by Reverend Baba Padmanji called Arunodaya, and other by Lakshmi Bai Tilak, Smriti Chitra. Thankfully, we have at least 2 English translations of Smriti Chitra. But Baba Padmanji's biography is waiting for translation. Then Telugu poet Gurram Joshua, a Sahitya Academy Award poet, he wrote a great poem called Kabilam, but we need its translation. So modern Christians, contemporary Christians, the youth need to rediscover that legacy. Thankfully, we have some people, especially from the Northeast, from Mizoram and Nagaland, who are producing some excellent work in forms of stories and novels. Let's read and discuss those. and inaugurate a renaissance in the 21st century.